I just shared with my youngest son that we were getting back in the recording studio and recording this again. And he was like, yeah, I used to love Four Men in the Butthole.
Four Men in a Wormhole! Hello, wormies, and welcome to Four Men in a Wormhole, our long-running but yet on a very long hiatus podcast and videocast series where us four blokes discuss all things sci-fi based upon our loves, preferences, not based on any expertise whatsoever, but we love it, we consume it, and we like to talk about it and discuss it. And joining me today, as with all the previous episodes, and God willing for all the episodes to come, we have in no particular order the one and only Simon Cohen. Hello, Simon.
Hi, Stephen. You say no particular order, but you did pick me first for a reason, didn't you?
Yes, because we look the same. And welcome back. It's great to have you here. And then we have, in no particular order, except now Simon has suggested there is an order, so I don't know how I can do anything without there being a pre-suggested order now. Tal Silverman, welcome back to Four Men in a Wormhole.
Good to be back, Stephen. I'd just like to add that because we've been travelling in this wormhole at near light speeds, relatively speaking, we've only been away for a couple of days. It's just seems to have been at least however many years for everyone else here on Earth. Now that we're back,
so I think that's a really valid sci-fi point.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, time is definitely passing more slowly for us. I think that's what's happening. And I think outside of the wormhole, everything is going a lot quicker. So
absolutely,
that is definitely a thing that's happening. And on the order thing, like I should have written something down on a card, because when you said no particular order, I said to myself, I'll be last. I should have written that down, because now it sounds like I'm just saying that because I was last. But I agree with Simon that there was an order.
Maybe you're not last. Maybe you're first for the next episode. Think about it.
Well, mate, I can only hope. But if you went back and looked at all the other series in the order in which you introduce, you'd find out.
Maybe, but like I said, maybe now I'm introducing you for the next episode. So you're getting in early. So I'd like to now introduce the audience to Adam Leach, who is joining us on this and the next episode. Adam, welcome.
Thank you, Stephen. It's good to be here. I think also this new segment where we bicker with each other, I think that's good. I think we should use that.
I think it's the future of the podcast. I think eventually this is all people will tune in for. So it's wonderful to have none of us, despite the fact we've only been away for a few days, we haven't aged at all. So that's really good to see. Our audience
time is passing more slowly for us in the wormhole. So that is why.
Yes,
I think people can see that in our fresh.
But Adam, I think you've got more hair now than you did when we entered the wormhole.
Yeah, hair has been growing since I've been in the wormhole. Yeah, it's difficult to get a haircut in the wormhole.
Yeah,
there's not many hairdressers.
You're looking good. You're looking good for it. So I thought, well, firstly, a reminder, even I did say earlier, a reminder to our huge audience, especially the people in France, that obviously none of us pretend to be experts in the field of sci-fi, even though we all think we're experts in the field of sci-fi, but no one should accuse us of being experts and hence being wrong.
Well, I think maybe we do pretend to be experts, but don't actually believe we are experts. Is that the right way?
We're not technically experts, but I think push comes to shove, if we were in a room arguing with people, we would say, no, we're right. Probably because fundamentally...
Is that the definition of an expert? I don't know. Is that the definition of an expert?
Well,
people claim they're right. Doesn't that mean...
We probably feel self-validated that because we have a podcast, we know our stuff.
Also, who is an expert? What is the qualifications you need to become an expert in sci-fi? It would be good to know. So do people do like MSCs in sci-fi?
Arthur C. Clarke. If I said Arthur C. Clarke, I think you'd say expert. Or Isaac Asimov, you'd say expert.
You have to be a producer.
Adam Leach.
Produce it.
Adam Leach.
It just rolls off the tongue.
Will
Yeah.
Wheaton.
Yes.
Will Wheaton. Yeah, he's definitely an expert.
He's an
Yeah.
expert.
Yeah.
I think the point is that we're just four blokes that like talking about sci-fi, and often we sound like we know what we're talking about, but a lot of the time we don't. And so we do this because we love it, and hopefully people like listening to us too.
Yeah, but I think we say that we're just but we're not experts. We're just blokes to make ourselves feel humble. But I think psychologically, deep down, we do think we're experts. So there is this paradoxical situation going on, and I hope the audience respect that we're right and they're wrong.
I was talking to my wife about book clubs, and I was like, actually, Four Men and Wormhole is kind of like our book club, isn't it? I mean, it may be broader than just books; it's films and TV, but basically, we get together, talk about what we watched, what we've seen, what we've read, and that's it. So it's kind of like a book club that everyone's invited to.
Exactly. So one thing I do want to do, but we won't spend too long on it, is on our initial episode, we did argue / discuss what is sci-fi. And I know we were discussing, like, is Lord of the Rings sci-fi? Is this sci-fi? Is that sci-fi? And actually, as the episodes went in, or on, I should say, we definitely introduced more fantasy alongside what I call pure sci-fi. So I don't know if anyone's views have changed. So in no particular order, should we go with Adam Leach first? I mean, have you got any?
Well, I don't. I think it's funny. We started with a very highbrow topic in our first episode of what is sci-fi, which we failed to answer, and then I think in the subsequent episodes continued to not shed any light on that subject of what is or isn't sci-fi. If I continue in that vein, I think if I just think about that over the time we were doing the podcast, which was like 2020 through to 2022-ish, or maybe a bit longer. Maybe it was longer.
No, it was longer.
Yeah, it was into 23. Has sci-fi become more mainstream in that time? I kind of feel like it has. That there's more, bigger budget, mainstream, bigger deal, some big films that are outside the big franchises that draw an audience, and it's become more mainstream, whatever it is. Even if we can't decide what it is, definitely there's more people watching it and consuming it than there used to be.
I wonder whether like this whole advent of AI is kind of making this resurgence for sci-fi, because of the fact that the technology of AI seems to be developing so quickly that we're now sort of feel like we're living in this kind of either slightly dystopian or that kind of technological age whereby the pace of change could suddenly grow exponentially, and suddenly before we know it, we're kind of like living. So maybe it resonates a bit more, maybe, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. I think like there was this kind of, I love this, like the idea of retrofuturism, which was what the future looked like in the past. So like in my mindset, I'm stuck in the 80s version of the future.
Do you mean like the Tomorrow's World version of the printer inside the briefcase?
I'm thinking Back to the Future too. That was like a vision of the future, which is now the past.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. So you're sort of, so we've gone through various iterations of sci-fi evolved because we catch up and we're living in the times that was being predicted.
Also, I think on one of our last episodes before our hiatus, I think we were discussing the impact of streaming on sci-fi, in the sense of we have a lot of streaming services, each looking for its own specific audience. And so as opposed to making a TV show for a very broad audience, these platforms are trying to be more specific. And hence you've got a lot of sci-fi shows on Disney and Amazon. And in fact, we've almost seen that also come together with the fact that those who have grown up with video games, some of them are still playing, some of them aren't playing, but they still...
Was that a dig at me, Stephen?
No, well, it wasn't, but even if they're not still playing, they have that culture in them. In fact, they know some of the IPs and the stories. And if you look at what people are investing in with the Fallout TV series, The Last of Us TV series. There's been a lot of sci-fi created over the last few years that are adaptations of video games. So I think there's a number of different things at play. I think I really resonate with what Tal just said about AI, but I also think there's as the audience is evolving, and alongside the fact there are more platforms for the delivery of these TV shows, that they're investing in things that traditionally scriptwriters would never have touched because they weren't part of that culture. So they couldn't write it, and they didn't even think it was of any value. I mean, Fallout. We're going to talk about our watches, and this isn't one of them. But the Fallout TV series was highly rated, even if you weren't into Fallout. Obviously, there was The Last of Us, and I'm sure there's another one. But
you've also got like Borderlands, the film. I mean, it's
that was a total
not highly rated, but it's still a video game getting into
and literally in the last few days of us recording this, Paramount have got the rights and they're doing a Call of Duty movie, and also
the Halo stuff as well, isn't there, on Paramount as well, isn't it?
Sorry,
there's the Halo stuff on.
They did 2 series of that, and then they cancelled it. But yes, they did it. And then also there's at least 2 series of Twisted Metal on Paramount, which is a TV series with the guy who's the Captain America. He's the main character now. Twisted Metal was a PlayStation 1 gaming series. So I think there's a whole bunch of different reasons. But has anyone here view changed on what is sci-fi? Because as I said, having defined what sci-fi was within so many months of doing it last time, we then started to talk about Lord of the Rings and things like that, which we were pretty clear weren't sci-fi. And I'm very happy to keep on talking about Lord of the Rings, and I'm looking forward to
I don't think we've ever talked about Lord of the Rings.
Well, we talked about the Wheel of Time, which was
we did, yeah.
But that had a sci-fi element in it because it kept referencing the past, which was like the future. But I'm pretty sure at some point we did cross over into some fantasy.
I just went onto a AI engine to ask it what the difference is between sci-fi and fantasy, and it's given me an answer which I think is really close to what we did get to actually when we discussed it the first time. And it, just to simplify it, it's just the main difference is that sci-fi explores the possible, and fantasy deals with the impossible, or at least the unexplained. And that's why things like Lord of the Rings and Star Wars fall into fantasy, because they are not grounded in science. They're not things that are possible. They are things that are based on our current knowledge and science impossible. So I thought that was quite an interesting way of looking at it.
The only thing with that, which I think does muddy the waters a bit and make it a little bit grey, is that
aliens
quote. Well, and that quote of any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Is that Arthur C. Clarke?
Arthur C. Clarke, yeah, that's Arthur C.
Clarke. And I think that's where and then it becomes a question of like, if you're talking about material that you're viewing, whether that's or listening to as a book, or reading as a book, or a film, or TV, is whether, I think there just has to be an element. It has to be grounded in some sort of element of explanation. So it's like an attempt to explain something in a slightly scientific method.
So midichlorians.
Sorry,
midichlorians. Is that enough to sort of justify Star Wars being sci-fi?
No, I think that's a bit too tenuous, because it's not. I mean, I think if they'd have spent more time on that and had done maybe something around the idea of examining it more. I know they started to within some of the later series, like the Mandalorian stuff, where they did they were sort of hinting a bit more as to kind of like the kind of genetic side of it and things. But I think if they'd have gone into that in a bit more depth, funnily enough, I'm not going to go too much into it now, but it will lead into it. But actually, interestingly, 2 of my actually definitely one of them is one of my choices is very borderline fantasy science fiction. I'm going to talk about in a bit. So maybe it'll be interesting. I'm not sure whether any of you have seen it, but when we get around to talking about it, it'll be interesting to see, or if you get to see it at some point, what you think of that. Because I think actually it's very tenuous, but
I think
in some respects, but feels like sci-fi.
But I think last time we also agreed that even if something was fantasy, if it has an element of sci-fi, we're cool with it. So if you take Star Wars, I think, okay, it's funny you said Metachlorian, Simon, because that was exactly what was in my head. But if you ignore that, the Jedi part is fantasy. And we know that a lot of stuff about like how the ships move or even what they fire is it's not science fiction because it's literally anti-science. It's not how things would work in space. But take the droids, pretty sci-fi, right? In fact, some may even say antiquated sci-fi in the sense of some modern technology is already more like today's technology is more advanced. Mind you, it should all be more advanced because Star Wars is set in a galaxy a long time away, far away, a long time ago. So it's all ancient. But certainly Star Wars clearly has elements of sci-fi. Whether it was done with sci-fi in mind, like a science fiction writer, or they just came up with cool stuff and then it stumbles into sci-fi. I think it's more that's what Star Wars is.
Yeah,
Whereas Star Trek really is trying to be sci-fi. But I think the audience will probably get little bits of fantasy that crops in, especially where, and Tyler's already teasing one, where we find properties which have an overlap, even if it's tenuous. I mean, without getting into a Doctor Who debate, which I think we're going to save maybe for our next episode, Doctor Who is, time travel, sci-fi, but then a lot of the baddies, such as statues that don't move until or do move, but not when you're looking at them or whatever, we're back into fantasy land, right?
Yeah, it's about. I think that's where I come back to that thing of it is about having some element of explanation or judging the reader to not have to dispel all of your kind of credibility, all of your idea, your sense of credibility in what you're reading.
Yeah, I think I read something about a definition of sci-fi that at least early works of sci-fi were about stuff that was explainable or new technology that was, if not here, was on the horizon, and then taking that one idea and then expanding about it and looking at what are the consequences if we had that thing. So here's a thing that is close to reality, but perhaps not quite with us. But what would happen in a world where it's everywhere? So I think now I'm struggling to think of some examples of that. But I think early sci-fi sort of takes that model, and I think I've said this before, definitely in other podcasts. But whether it's kind of sci-fi or whether it's fantasy, what what matters is whether there's a good story being told. But what I like is when either one has a set of rules about how their universe works, whether it's explainable or not explainable, whether it's fantasy or whether it's some pseudo-scientific explanation, but then it sticks with those rules and uses that to tell stories. And I think
you could argue a good example of that might be someone like Terry Pratchett, actually, because it's like a lot of his stuff's completely implausible, but actually there is that element.
His universe works in a kind of consistent way.
He's taken time to build that and make it, and that gets where things like also, I guess Tolkien did a similar thing with Lord of the Rings. So it's a rich universe that they're kind of drawing on, and you've got a bit to draw upon and stuff. So I guess from that point of view, it's good writing.
It's then up to you whether you believe the world, whether you believe the reasons the world is like it is. Like if you need a bit more explanation or a bit more science to get you over the line of believing that that's why the world that they're creating looks like that, or where you're just happy to go with, well, it's like this because it is, and then you just. But I think the good stories, the movies and films and books that I really like is when they've got that have that consistency. And like the time travel is a great example of that. It's like, well, established, it's not science. There is no science that explains time travel to the extent that we see it and we know about it. But if you have some consistent rules and that allows you to tell an interesting story, then that's what I enjoy from those yarns.
I think that's a really good point. Believable universes with consistent rules, consistent physics, a bit like video games. Some video games try and have Earth-like physics, others don't, but they nonetheless have their own form of physics, so you have predictable behaviours once you...
Yeah, exactly.
And actually, when I say it's a form of science fiction, it's not a form of science fiction. I'm going to argue with myself before I've even made the statement. But actually, we learn more about the universe all the time. And every so often, things that we thought we did know, or theories that we thought were probably going to be true, we every so often find it wasn't quite like that, or behaviour. I mean, they used to think universe was expanding and then was going to at some point contract again, but that theory, I think, is being challenged. Also, even I was listening the other day, the theory about the Big Bang. For years, we've been told it was just, I'm not using the right terminology here, but some form of highly intense matter that literally went boom. But now we're being told there was probably something between the boom and then space as we know it expanding. There was probably a point of a larger mass with huge amounts of heat, which could have lasted for. But the point is, these theories are either evolving or being disproven or proven. So having authors who experiment with other systems, even if they're completely fabricated, could actually be useful and for us as humans, for scientists who read this stuff, because it allows them to expand.
Well, there's definitely a proven link between scientists being inspired by science fiction they've read, and this kind of virtuous loop of like innovation and different ideas that we get from science fiction. So yeah,
and that's what I think makes science creative. I think science inherently is a creative endeavor, and I think you have to have the idea to create a theory or a hypothesis. I mean, it might be based on something that you see around you, but to then test that, you have to have a slight kind of creative moment to kind of come up with those in the first place. And I think that's why
I think Stephen's explanation of the Big Bang is why this is a science fiction podcast and not a science podcast. Yeah. One of the lines I think Simon's very keen to draw is that we stick to the science fiction and not the science.
No, but we're experts in that as well. I mean, we'll deny it if anyone asks. But deep down, we know that we understand this stuff better than the real.
I think you're talking about Tom.
Four men in a wormhole. So now we've re-established our thoughts on all of that and set the tone for the, God willing, many episodes to come. I think we'll dive into the meat and veg of what it is we do here on Four Men in a Wormhole. So, Simon, in no particular order, should we listen to Adam first?
No. Yeah, I'd love to, yeah. I mean, just in the subject of setting the tone, though, I switched off about 10 minutes ago when Adam used the word yarns. And so,
what's wrong with that?
I don't know. I just didn't like the word. Then I missed all the science stuff. So anyway, crack on, Adam.
You can't beat a good yarn.
But I'm devastated that was that you're looking down on my use of the word yarn.
I think yarn is not sci-fi, nor is it fantasy. Anyway, what I do want to do though is I think we should warn the audience. What we're about to do is talk about. Obviously, we've all consumed a lot of different sci-fi fantasy films, books, games, whatever over the umpteen months that we've not been recording. But we should warn the audience that what we're going to do now is just pick three. There might not be our best three. They're three contrasting things that we think are interesting and worth talking about. But we should also warn the audience that Adam generally picks three things and then says why he was underwhelmed and disappointed by them. So if you're, as he's going first, if the audience thinks we're suddenly now going to be anti-sci-fi, don't worry, get past Adam, it'll all be okay. Me, Simon and Natal are really quite enthusiastic about this stuff. So with that in mind, Adam,
I will start right here. Well, I'm talking about three books that I've read, sci-fi books that I've really enjoyed. I think all of them I enjoyed. The first one, it's a new Adam, is Hyperion by Dan Simmons, and this is a sci-fi yarn. As I like to say. And it's pretty old, so I think it was published like 87, 88, and it's kind of like a space opera. two books, Hyperion and the Fall of Hyperion, and it's about kind of a world-spanning human race have gone out into the stars based on many planets. There's this planet called Hyperion, which is a kind of a bit of a paradox. That's really off-putting, Simon. Whatever you're doing with your camera.
I didn't even move.
Expanding and contracting like the universe. Anyway, there's this planet called Hyperion, which isn't part of the interconnected web of planets, and it's got lots of folklore and stories about it, and about this monster called the Shrek that lives on the planet, and these time tombs that are on the planet that are going back in time. There's a time field around them, and they're going backwards in time. So it's a bit of this kind of weird planet, and it's a really interesting book, and really it's a really great story. A lot of it is really ahead of its time when you read it now. To think it was written in like 87 or 88, the way it deals with things like AI, the way it deals with things like space travel, really, I found really good, really enjoyable. The main story, they describe it a bit like the Canterbury Tales. So it's about a set of travellers that go to the world of Hyperion at a time when the universe is about to end, and they have this pilgrimage to see this shrike, which is like billed as sort of almost like the Antichrist, like the being that will end humanity and that comes at the end of time. So they go. There's these kind of how many characters it is? It's a while ago since I read it. It's like 5 or 6 characters that go on this pilgrimage, and then the books are about as they're on this pilgrimage, they talk to each other. They talk to each other about their lives, and you get a kind of background of why each of them are there and their connection with the Shrike and with Hyperion. And all of their stories are interconnected. They're seemingly random strangers that have nothing in common.
The Shrike or the Shrek? Because you said earlier...
It's the Shrike. It's the Shrike. It's the Shrike.
I just wondered.
It's the Shrike, and they seemingly random people, but actually there's a connection with all of them. And then they've basically got to do an Avengers. They unlikely heroes that unite in some way, and to try and defeat the Shrike. And then that's the story. But yeah, it's really good. And Hyperion is a poem. And now I've completely forgotten the name of the poet that's written it. Because they introduce the poet. I don't know.
It's not written as a poem.
No, Hyperion. No, it's. I'm going to kick myself, but I've just got to find out who it was.
While you're looking, I think you recommended this book to me, and in fact, most of the books I've read have been recommended by you. But this one in particular, sorry,
John Keats. So John's a famous English poet, and there's his half finished poem called Hyperion, and the themes of the poem Hyperion are reflected in the book. And actually, there's a character that is John Keats that is, and this is the thing that I thought was really clever written in 1987, that they brought John Keats back to life. There's this kind of AI intelligence that is separate from man, and they brought John Keats back to life based on his writings. So basically, it was sort of almost like a large language model where it had read all the works of John Keats and it had reconstructed a person from his works. So they'd reverse engineered John Keats, which I just thought was a really interesting parallel.
Go on, Simon.
Well, I did start this book. I just checked my Amazon Audible and noticed that the book was last 20 hours and 44 minutes, and I had 20 hours and 22 minutes left of it. So I didn't get very far in this book.
It's long. You've got to dig into it. Like you've got you've got to put in the hours to it's not a quick fix, but it is a satisfying story. It is worth, and also there's Hyperion, the Fall of Hyperion, and I think annoyingly it's probably not 20 hours, it's probably 40 hours, because it's both books, because actually Hyperion is really part one, and then you don't really get a conclusion to the story until you read the Fall of Hyperion. So you've got to kind of be in it for both of the books, I think, to get the start and end of the story. But yeah, I'd really recommend it. I've probably spent too long talking about that, but it was one that basically Amazon would always recommend to me, like, oh, have you read Hyperion? Have you read Hyperion? Like, no, I hadn't actually. It wasn't actually recommended to me to anyone. I actually just, in the end, I just gave into the algorithm and just went, oh, okay, well, I'll read this then, just because you seem to be forcing me to. So I read it, but it's good. So that was my first one. That's sufficiently boring, and then I will move on to the other one. And then, so on this AI theme, I think maybe that was the theme. Andrew Tchaikovsky has done. He's done so many books now. It's difficult to keep up with the amount of output that guy has done. But this is called Service Model, and this is a really interesting look at. It's basically a look at AI and the consequences of AI, and it's a kind of post-apocalyptic world where all that's left of the world is the robots that have inhabited it, and this robot is basically a servant. Starts off being a sort of butler, and he, I think it's in the blurb on the back, so it's not a spoiler. He basically murders his master, and it's not in his programming to do that, and he's not. It's like not something he should do, and he kind of has a crisis basically after he murders his. He realizes he has no point to live anymore because he's kind of murdered the one thing that he's there to do.
It's a murder. It's not like a mistake, an accident. He's got.
Well, he kind of. Well, I don't know. He kind of convinces himself it might have been an accident, and he doesn't really know because the part of his memory that has gone. So it must be some kind of mistake that's happened, because he wouldn't do that. He's just not designed to do that. But it's a really clever look. There's that, and then he goes on out into the world and meets other robots and and then other humans and what has happened. And it's basically a look at the way AI works and some of the unexplainability of AI, and about AI trying to meet its goals that it's set out. And if you're not clear about what goals, AI will not necessarily take the path that you expect it to take, but it will take the shortest path to achieving those goals. The book itself is based on a non-fiction book about artificial intelligence called You Look Like a Thing and I Love You. And that's a great book as well, but it's maybe slightly outside our science fiction remit. But it gives the service model a good basis.
And when was that written?
I think it's like 2022, 2023. It's like a relatively recent book, I think. Son, you were going to say something.
Yeah, so I also read this book on your recommendation. This one I did finish actually.
It's short. It's a short
book, but also it doesn't waste any time in getting going. So it launches you straight into the story with the murder of his master. I really like it because it's actually, from a sci-fi perspective, it is actually quite believable. It's like one of those. It's almost like a sort of a Black Mirror episode. It's like, it's quite a likely future in a way. Sadly, actually, and it's funny, and it's interesting seeing this robot go off on an adventure. I loved it. I think we talked about it. I thought it did it end quite strangely or quite quickly. I can't remember, but overall it was a very fun book.
It was funny. It had quite a lot of humour in it, which his books don't usually have, but this had quite a lot of humour in it. One of the characters is a human that pretends they're a robot, and I think characters are interesting. You like the characters, they're very likable characters, and it's fun. There was something about the end of it. It ends sort of a bit rushed. He takes there's the period of the book is over a long time, and then suddenly the end comes quite quickly after. I think that was, but it was good, definitely worth it. And I feel like I've been rabbiting too long. But my last thing that I really enjoyed. So this is 3 things I really enjoyed. The third one was a book called Mickey 7 by, I'm going to just get his name, Edward Ashton. Edward Ashton. The book Mickey 7, it's set in the near future, and it's about someone. It's about, we've covered this kind of, and the philosophy of this we've covered in this podcast before, because it's the ship of Theseus triggers Broom questions, because basically he is a person that basically when he dies, they print a new body and they've taken a backup of his consciousness and put that consciousness onto the new body. So it's kind of, he gets, it's called Mickey 7 because it's, you introduce the story of the 7th iteration of Mickey. Mickey 1, was the original person, and then he was printed.
This is like there was a film that came.
There's a film with Patterson. Robert Patterson, who plays Mickey. The film is called Mickey 17 and not Mickey 7. So the story slightly diverges from the book, but I really enjoyed the film. It wasn't exactly like the book, but it wasn't enjoyable, and I thought Robert Pattinson was great in it as well. He was really not what you'd expect Robert Pattinson, the sort of character for Robert Pattinson to play, because he's a sort of like bungling, unexpected hero, but I think he plays it really well.
He does, and he plays. I've seen that as well, and he effectively plays multiple versions of himself as well, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I think he's playing 17 and 18, or is it?
17 because the book focuses on 7 and 8 and those two. So I think they're the book. So you kind of rush through. You find out what happened to the others, and it's kind of the world is really interesting. Humanity has colonized the stars. We've gone out and reached out to planets, and they're going on a mission. He is an expendable, which is they have one person per ship that has this role of being expendable, and that it does all the dangerous stuff and life-threatening stuff when you get to either on the way to or when you get to a new planet. There's quite a lot of humour in it. It's got an interesting philosophy in it, and it's just good sci-fi. So yeah, I definitely recommend Mickey 7. And there is a sequel which is called Antimatter Blues, which I haven't read yet, but I think the sequel was written because the film did really well. So I think Edward Ashton then rushed out a sequel. So I don't know whether the sequel. I'm slightly nervous about that, whether it will be as good. But I'll definitely. I read one of the other Edward Ashton's books, sci-fi books, and it was really good. So yeah, definitely worth looking and checking out.
They are your 3 talking points.
I'm done now. I'm done.
Reading. I know you've been watching things as well.
I have been, but they're the things I get excited about. I watch things, I get grumpy about them, but I tend to get more excited about books.
Excellent. So moving on, again in no particular order, we'll go with Tal Silverman. What are your 3 interesting highlights?
Okay, thanks, Stephen. And thanks, Adam. I didn't chip in much there because I hadn't read any of those books, but they've all piqued my interest. So I think maybe Hyperion, maybe slightly less so, just because I've actually got this isn't what I'm talking about. I've actually got a book by a guy called Neil Stevenson who I've never read before.
Oh, right, okay.
Big book. It's a big book.
Right.
Yeah. And I got, basically, I'm terrible in bookshops because I tend to get attracted to the big books. Yeah, so this I'm going to give it a go at some point. But I got recommended. I went to the counter in Waterstones, and the guy got really excited about it. I just randomly picked it up.
What is the book?
It's called 7 Eves, and it's also a thing of like basically I think the Earth becomes uninhabitable and mankind goes off to the stars, and then it's set 5,000 years after the people that basically left Earth 5,000 years previously then have to go on to another planet to do something else. So that's the general gist of it, but that's not what I'm talking about. But yeah, he's apparently really good, and he's written some interesting stuff. So I'm going to try and get through that.
Yeah.
So first up,
I think he's considered the father of cyberpunk. I think if it's
right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, really. I mean, I've not read any of his stuff before, but yeah, he's done some timey-wimey stuff as well with he's done some timey-wimey stuff with I think Alan Turing in the Enigma Code type story as well. He was telling me, which sounds quite interesting about a future thing.
Sounds like my cup of tea. Yeah,
so that might be good. So my first one I'm going to talk about, I haven't put this in any particular order, but first one I'm going to talk about, I think, is kind of is a bit of a guilty pleasure because it's a bit trashy in so much as it's a series that I found on Amazon Prime called Sanctuary, which was made, I think, between 2008 and 2011. There's 4 seasons of it. And it's kind of the sort of sci-fi type series that I would have really enjoyed as a teenager, as a young teenager. And it's not particularly aimed at kids or anything, but it's definitely not. It's not got any adult themes. It's very accessible. It's very easy. And essentially, what it is there's a place called the Sanctuary, which is essentially a place where abnormals are safe and can kind of live without being kind of persecuted or judged. So there's obviously a lot of overlap with a lot of other themes here. What will be interesting if you do see this is whether you actually think it's sci-fi, because actually the sci-fi that's in it, or the science that's in it, is quite hard science, in so much as the woman who runs the Sanctuary is a doctor called Helen Magnus. She happens to be 157 years old, which is a different thing. But that's because she's got some sort of blood thing going on that's allowed her to live very old, live for a long time. She's played by an actress who actually comes from Essex, a woman called Amanda Tappin, but she's lived in Canada most of her life. The series is a Canadian production, so most of the actors are Canadian.
Wasn't she
Stargate?
Yes. Yeah, and she directs, and she's a producer as well. She's a really well respected, I think, kind of sort of actress and director. So and she basically so she's kind of like the main scientist, so to speak. So everything that kind of happens in every episode, there's always a link. There's always a scientific kind of link, even though a lot of the characters are kind of either mutants or kind of even completely like other. It's a lot about sort of almost like branched evolution. So it's like, like you might get a dinosaur whale or something, or random stuff that kind of, and it's obviously a lot of it's very unbelievable. Another main character is an actor called Jonathan Young, who plays Nikola Tesla, as in Nikola Tesla, or Nikolai Tesla, and he happens to be a vampire. So it's kind of like it's a very
famously that's
exactly.
well established fact. I think
it does deviate from fact just a little bit. But I really enjoy. It's really funny. The first few episodes I watched it, I could have easily, I think maybe 3 episodes in, I could have easily just said, yeah, this is a bit trashy. The script writing on the first couple of episodes is pretty painful and is quite cringy, and it doesn't kind of flow very well, and it's a little bit stilted, and it's very odd. And I sort of thought, oh god, I'm gonna have to just bin this. And then by about episode 4 or 5, I was starting to enjoy it, just because the character development is quite good. There's an overarching story. At one point, they go into the centre of the earth. There's a whole civilization living in Hollow Earth, they call it. And there's lots of abnormals that live down there. And it's just a kind of, there's like, some of them are standalone episodes. It feels a little bit Doctor Who. There's a time element to it because she's obviously 157 years old. So she goes back. She doesn't go back. They don't travel in time, but they're basically every now and again you'll get an episode that is about her earlier life. So you'll get an episode in Victorian England, or you'll get an episode during the First World War or Second World War, or it's like, so there'll be kind of things that kind of link in, and the story, her story kind of goes through it. So I'm actually not quite finished it. I'm on season 4, but I'm about halfway through season 4 at the moment, so I do need to finish it. But I'd give it a watch. It's one of those things that I think, like I say, it's not, if you're just looking for something that's a little bit trashy, it's not particularly highbrow or intellectual, but there's some great characters in it. The mutants and the kind of animals that they kind of come across and have to kind of help. There's a whole kind of balancing act between helping these essentially dangerous animals or dangerous creatures, and how to kind of contain them safely, but protect their freedoms and all this sort of stuff. So there's a lot of political bits and pieces in there as well. So that's that.
Reminded me a bit of Wednesday when you said that, because I've seen a few episodes of season 2 of Wednesday, and that's sort of like school. The school for, I don't know what they call it, but people that are not, not outcasts. Is it sort of that kind of mutant powers and
I mean, it's not an original idea, but I mean, I guess 2008 to 2011, I guess there's a lot of that. It predates kind of a few of the things that you sort of think kind of are similar, but it did. I think it was Emmy Award winning or Emmy Award nominated, so I think it kind of must have got a little bit of positive attention a bit later on. Don't know whether it sort of completely ends or whether it was axed. Actually, I'm not sure, but they've got 4 seasons out of it, which is a pretty good going. So the other thing, we've got 2 other things. Let's do Thunderbolts, which because I think bit of Marvel, can't go wrong with it. Marvel.
Crowd pleaser.
Yeah, has everyone watched Thunderbolts?
Yes.
No, but I don't mind. I don't mind. I'm going to watch it, and I will still enjoy it.
Yeah, we won't. I mean, there won't be any major plot sort of. I won't do any major spoilers. I think firstly I did enjoy this film more than I thought I was going to, but mostly I enjoyed it for the characters rather than the storyline. And the characters are very well written. A lot of them are very familiar. Well, nearly all, I think all of them, nearly all of them, apart from the main kind of evil kind of element to it, we know about. So it's got Bucky Barnes in. It's got it's got the Red Guardian, who's basically played by David Harbour from Stranger Things. He's brilliant. It's got Yelena Belova, who's Black Widow, essentially Black Widow's sister. Then you've got Ghost, who was in Ant-Man and Wasp, so she features. And then you've got and the other character that I was really pleased, obviously, for us to kind of see more of was Valentina. Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. So just because
that's easy for you to say,
which is played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, but basically. Because she appeared in a few of the series, and she sort of was a lot of like end credits and stuff. It was that thing of a lot of times she was a bit of a teaser character. We didn't really know that much about her. But she's essentially a CIA director, and she's kind of a major kind of character in this. But essentially, all these kind of superheroes are kind of thrown together, and you've also got the guy who played John Walker, who's basically was the guy who played Captain America, or the kind of bad Captain America in what am I going to say?
Where you played it in it was the Winter Soldier.
Falcon. Yeah, Falcon.
Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
And
I didn't like him in that series, but I did like him in Thunderbolts. I thought it was quite good.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, he kind of they sort of worked. I don't know. They'd kind of worked out the character. Like I'm not in the series. It was like, is he legit? Is he supposed to be like?
Yeah, I think they were trying to be
second-rate Captain America or not. It was all a bit weird.
Yeah,
whereas they
kind of trying to be a bit mysterious with him, weren't they? They were trying to be a bit mysterious and kind of make him like more complex than like it's a really complex character. And in a way, he was in that series, but it was almost like too much. It's like in this, he sort of has a role, but it's sort of not overly analysed.
Yeah.
Does anyone else?
He's had the super soldier serum. He's strong. He can beat people up. That's it.
And he looks like Harry Kane, like a squished Harry Kane. Obviously, Harry Kane.
That's the other thing we don't talk about on this podcast. We don't talk about football. So
no,
this is not that. It's not that podcast.
So
also,
generally speaking, I think it's actually got one of the best sort of reviews and feedback of any sort of modern MCU film, really. I think, generally speaking, I wouldn't necessarily. I mean, personally speaking, I think if I had to give it a rating, I'd probably give it maybe an 8 out of 10. It didn't blow my socks off, but it was
a good rating for modern Marvel.
Exactly. So it was good in that sense.
People have described it as a sort of action comedy, group movie.
It's very much an ensemble cast.
It's an ensemble cast, but with a real sense of humour, and it's the it's the anti-Avengers, but but I don't mean plot-wise. I mean in terms of the whole, the way the film is executed.
Yeah, they're not exactly Earth's mightiest heroes, are they? They're sort of the second Earth's less mighty heroes, and I think that's what they play into. But I enjoyed it. I thought, and I was also the same, like kind of slightly surprised. Like, wasn't just thinking, oh god, not that I'm not going to enjoy it, but my hopes weren't high. But I thought it was good.
No, I'm really looking forward to watching it. I've seen lots and lots of clips of it on YouTube, and look, and it's Marvel's version of the Suicide Squad. Yes,
it is. It is. So yeah, I mean, I definitely. I mean, like I say, I preferred it to. What was the one with the Red Hulk in? See, I can't even remember that.
Brave New World.
Yeah, Brave New World. Yeah, I definitely preferred it to that.
Brave New World.
Yeah. I don't think, by the way, we're digressing, but that's what we're famous for. I don't think Brave New World was so bad. Some people said it was nothing special, or it was a retread of the similar plot line to Civil War, with like mind control and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But actually, I don't think it was a Captain America film at all. I thought it was a redemption movie for General Thunderous, or whatever his name is, the character played by Harrison Ford. I actually thought it was his story and resolving his story from the original Hulk movie.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think that there's other Captain America. Actually, one of my barriers for getting into Marvel originally was the thing that really tipped me over the edge when I started watching. Because I remember Simon was into watching the Marvel movies before I was, and was trying to encourage, you should watch this because they all link together. And I was like, I'd seen a couple, Iron Man, whatever. But the one that really tipped it over for me was I hadn't really watched Captain America movies because I was just like, I just wasn't a superhero I knew, and I just didn't feel like getting into it. But then I watched Captain America Civil War, the reason I talk about this is because you said, like, Captain America Brave New World wasn't really a Captain America movie. Well, Captain America Civil War was not really a Captain America film either. It was actually an Avengers film. And actually, once you watch it through that light, that was the movie that I went, oh yeah, actually, this is really good. I can see how this is coming together. So yeah, I think sometimes the title can be deceptive of what the actual what they're actually trying to get out of it, or how to
I think we've only had one Captain America movie in terms of
the first one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think the rest have been vehicles for
I think steering it back to Brave New World, not Brave New World, Thunderbolts. I think what's good about this film, it could be good and bad, I guess, is that it does. I kind of hope that we get to see them again, because obviously we've got quite a lot coming up with Doctor Doom and all that sort of stuff, which won't necessarily feature any of this lot.
Well, the way it ends and the way it positions them, like it would be difficult for them not to play a role in a.
Well, that's it. I want to see them again, and I don't know whether they'll maybe just do a branch and do like a Thunderbolts 2, or a kind of keep that as a separate, almost like a separate strand, or whether they will try and intertwine it. I don't know, but yeah.
I thought it was a bit. I thought Thunderbolts was a bit of a return to form for Marvel, and I was a bit like if we take out the Spider-Man movies post Endgame, this was one where there wasn't a Spider-Man movie, but was actually it's pretty good. I agree. The Brave New World I saw after I saw Thunderbolts. I thought it's okay, but I would have been a bit meh if I hadn't have. I think Thunderbolts kind of made me think, I want to dive into this again.
Okay, so my third thing.
Sorry, Tom, just to answer your question. To answer your question, we will see the Thunderbolts again in Avengers Doomsday.
Oh, they will be in that. Okay, great. Yeah. Good. I hadn't looked it up, so thanks for checking in on that. That's good. Okay, so that would be cool. Avengers Doomsday is going to be. It's just that everyone's in it, aren't they? So I guess. I hope it's going to be good enough, because it almost sounds like they've got to cram so many characters into it that it doesn't just become this thing of constant like. Do you know what I mean? That it's like loads of cameos or loads of different, little.
But when they did that in Endgame, they'd had 10 years of movies to build that up, and like doing that again now seems like I don't know. Characters haven't got, isn't it? Yeah, I don't know. I'm not looking forward to it. Sorry, Simon. I know I'm delaying you getting onto your bit, but.
No, I know what you mean. It's like because their movies have been hit and miss, and this one and Avengers Doomsday will will be hyped up as big as it could possibly get, then it has the possibility of being the biggest disappointment ever. So,
the whole idea
so
of
we'll have to wait and see.
bringing back Robert Downey Jr. but not as the character we know, and is that just going to be?
My biggest concern is just the number of characters and how do you weave that together in the movie.
Yeah,
but they've done that before, though. They managed it last time. I'm not too worried about that. They just need to focus on the right characters, the ones that we care about, not the ones that we've only seen in one movie and not.
But have you seen the number of chairs? But have you seen the
number?
Of
I've seen all the chairs. Yeah.
So it's way more than what they've put in any other movie.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that they're all going to be in lots of the movie, right? Like when they did Endgame, we'd only just been introduced to Black Panther, for example, and so there was only Black Panther wasn't in Endgame that much. It was more in the one before. Yeah. But yeah, they'll give each character was it?
Oh, Infinity War. That was the one.
That's the one. Yeah, that was the one before Endgame. Thank you. Yeah. This wormhole is doing things to my brain cells.
You could have warning, not an expert, just at the bottom that can flash up there.
Not an expert at all. Let's move on.
All right. So, Tal.
No. Okay, last one. This will be a fairly quick one because, again, this is a book, or rather, I should say, a series of books again. And I also found this randomly. This was sort of presented to me on. I've been doing most of my audiobooks on Spotify, just because I've got Spotify Premium, so you get a certain number of hours a month free. So it's like with Premium, so which is good. So there's 6 books in the series. I've only done the first 3, so I can't talk particularly kind of extensively about the entire story. But essentially, they're very exciting titles. You've got Colony 1 Mars, Colony 2 Mars, Colony 3 Mars, Colony 4 Mars, Colony 5 Mars, and Colony 6 Mars.
Oh, Colony 6 Mars. Oh, okay. Yeah. I was wondering where that was going. Right. Okay.
Yeah. No curveballs. So they're by. I'm not sure it's a guy or a girl. I know a big guy. I guess it was with Geraldine, maybe, or maybe not. Gerald M. Kilby. And they're quite recent. They're fairly recent. They're about 10 years ago. I think just under 10 years ago. Started writing them. They started writing them. And essentially, is as the name suggests.
Is it 6? But I was wondering about that. What the name suggests. Does the where the number is in the title suggest that there's 6 different colonies on Mars?
Yeah, and
or
it is
time you visit the colony.
No, it is a bit like that, and that's kind of what they've done, and that's where that is sort of what it is. So essentially, right, Adam. Essentially, what it is there's a colony on Mars, and the first colony on Mars was called Colony 1, and then there was another colony that was built called Colony 2. Then from there onwards, they're not like individual colonies that are built up. It's basically because you've got there's a few characters that are in it all the way throughout, or at least up until the end of 3. I'm guessing there's the main character called Dr. Jan Malbec, who I'm assuming she's in all 6. But essentially, what it is you've got a colony on Mars, and there's some genetic testing going on, and the genetic testing is around kind of longevity, about essentially trying to make humans immortal by genetically engineering them. And there's some cloning going on as well. So there's a clone sort of scenario where some of the colonists are clones and some are the original colonists. But then there's also a virus that breaks out. This isn't too much of a spoiler because it kind of happens pretty quickly in the first book. There's essentially a virus that breaks out that's off the back of this kind of genetic. Essentially, it's the genetic code that kind of causes the virus. It's the same code that essentially stops you aging, or actually makes you get a bit younger, not like super young, but stops you aging. So, and then there's a bit of a kind of political shenanigans of like the company that set up the colony on Mars that are originally still on Earth. They obviously then send people, because they lose contact with the colony because of the virus, and they send people out to try and see what's going on. And it kind of picks up from there, and they go on. It's good. Again, I wouldn't say it was amazing. It's easy. The characters quite interesting. There's essentially, it's kind of like, and there is kind of a story of kind of like tribalism. There's there's the clones that feel like they are kind of now the sort of true kind of Martians, so to speak, because they're kind of like don't really have a link to Earth as such, because they were kind of born, clones are born, grown or whatever on Mars. So there's that kind of slightly different dynamic. So yeah, so there's interesting stuff going on with it. I wouldn't say, it was, again, if I had to put a score on it, I'd probably give it maybe a 7. Enough probably for me to go through the next few books. I think I will listen to them. So I don't know if that's going to encourage anyone to go read them. I don't know.
I'm gonna have a look.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a look as well. That sounds really interesting. Is it as there becomes more colonies, does it get a bit political, or is it more?
Yeah, it does. It does a bit, for sure. And then there's also there's a Chinese company that want to get the technology for the longevity as well. So they send a crew over. So then there's obviously a fight between them and the original company that set up the colony, and the colonists that are on there already that have survived, because some of the colonists survived. So there's like at least within the third book, there's kind of 3 buying factions, really. So
sounds interesting.
So yeah, it gets better, but it's good. It's good. Yeah.
Something to get your teeth into. So, and also topical, I guess, because with Elon Musk and other people wanting to send people there.
Yeah, and I guess, and the whole longevity thing with oh God, what's his name? The guy.
A whole bunch of very rich people investing money in different sciences.
Yeah, exactly. So it's from that point of view, it kind of does ring a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's really interesting. Thank you, Tal. Simon, what are your 3 interesting talking points to bring to us, which you've been experiencing over the hiatus of 4 Men in a Wormhole?
Well, the biggest thing that I've been passing my time in is Lord of the Rings, actually, which I'm not sure if we're actually allowed to talk about it or not, because it isn't sci-fi. It just isn't sci-fi. But it has sort of grabbed me in the last year. I mean, I think literally it's been about a year since I started to sort of rediscover it, and it did start with the Rings of Power. I'm going to take you on the journey I went on, because it has been a bit of a journey. But it started with the Rings of Power season 2, which if you didn't make it through season 1, because season 1 was quite hard work at times, do try. Adam's shaking his head. It's season 1 had a couple of good episodes, like right at the end, like episode 7 and 8 or something like that. Season 2 again started slow, but did get really, really good towards the end. Season 2 was very, very good of the Rings of Power. The Rings of Power, I think probably everyone listening probably knows what it is, but it's sort of set thousands of years before the events of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, and covers actually the creation of the rings, hence the Rings of Power. So I finished watching season 2 of the Rings of Power, and I wanted more. I wanted more Lord of the Rings, so I went and watched the 3 movies of the Lord of the Rings, which I had seen before, but not for quite a long time. So I went and watched them again. Thoroughly enjoyed them. Still wanted more, and went to watch the 3 Hobbit movies, which again I had seen before. Which I know the Hobbit movies are quite often criticised because they took a short book and turned it into 3 long movies. But I still think that they're really good movies, and they're a lot of fun, and there's a lot of action, and I do recommend them. So anyway, then I watched 3 long movies of Lord of the Rings, and then 3 long movies of The Hobbit. But I still wanted more, so I went and downloaded the audiobooks, and each audiobook is for The Lord of the Rings is about 20 hours long. So I went through the Fellowship of the Ring and the Two Towers, and then Return of the King, and then still wanted more, and then downloaded and listened to the Hobbit. By the way, if you are going to read those books or listen to those books, those are all narrated by Andy Serkis, who stars in those movies and plays Gollum, and he is fantastic in terms of sort of not just reading the stories, but performing those stories, putting on every voice in near enough an impression of whoever played it in the movie. So when he's playing Gandalf, he sounds like Ian McKellen, and etc. etc. He is fantastic at that. I mean, it's just worth you talk about a narrator bringing something to life. He really does bring it to life. The guy's incredible. And then I went and actually he also narrates the book that I went to next, which is the Silmarillion. The Silmarillion. Yeah. So the Silmarillion. So all of these books were written around the same time. In that Tolkien was sort of building this world, which actually started with creation, like almost sort of a biblical, God and angels and creation of the earth, and goes right through to beyond the end of the Lord of the Rings, the Return of the King. So it sort of goes on about, I think, another sort of 50, 100 years, and so he sort of built this world and then picked the books that he wanted to go dig deeper into, and that ended up in it being focused on sort of Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit. But the Silmarillion is an account of probably the first few thousand or tens of thousands of years of Middle Earth, starting with creation and going right through the whole of history to beyond the events of Lord of the Rings. And it's written. It's written a lot like the Bible is written, in that it's in many ways actually. Firstly, whether you're religious or not, if you've read the Bible, it's quite boring in places, as is the Silmarillion, because it's got a lot of the talking about places and people and describing. There's lots of scripture stuff, which
there's so much. All of his stuff is so. I mean, that's how I've always found it. Because the amount of description in all of his books, even in
not in the Hobbit so much actually, but yes, in the Lord of the Rings definitely. But it's even harder in the Silmarillion. Like it's really tough to get through
into your Lord of the Rings.
I've gone really deep, but I didn't stop at the Silmarillion actually. So I then went through Unfinished Tales, which is as the name suggests, it's a load of stories which are largely covered in the Silmarillion actually, but going into sort of greater depth.
This is the Drake's note, isn't it? This so what did you call this last book? This is
Unfinished Tales.
Unfinished Tales, because it's like he's died, he didn't finish it, and his son has picked up the quill, and he's continuing.
No. His son has released them, and he sort of has gathered the notes of his dad and tried to make some sense out of some of it. Some of it is, and some of it isn't. So some of it is. That he's found sort of multiple versions of the same story, and so now he's got to explain like which one he thinks is the actual one. But some of it is a bit more interesting. Like for example, it goes into more detail around. It goes into detail full stop around the events that led up to the Hobbit, and also some of the in terms of why did all the dwarves end up at Bilbo Baggins' house to sort of to then go on this go on this adventure. And there's a whole sort of mini story about Gandalf meeting Thorin, I want to say his name is, and so there's some relevance to some of the stuff that you probably know, and also I think it was in Unfinished Tales is part of the story of Gollum in the time between the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings, and he's captured by Sauron, and also he's captured by sort of Gandalf and the elves, which is in the process right now being made into a movie, which is going to be released in 2027. Which again, Andy Serkis is starring in and also directing. So they're in New Zealand right now making that movie. So there is sort of some relevance to some of the stuff there. The Silmarillion is hard work though, but it is brilliant though. Like if you want to like be amazed about how one man can be such a genius in terms of what the human mind can create, it is amazing. And then I stopped. I haven't read any more. I have been listening to a podcast on Lord of the Rings, and I did buy the map and stick it on my wall. Those on that are looking on YouTube can see that. So that literally has been a year of my life, heavily immersed in and going deep into the Lord of the Rings.
I admire you for it. I admire the fact that you've just gone deep. I mean, I wouldn't, and I'm not going to follow you down that rabbit hole. But I admire what you've done there.
I think Toll was trying to say something, but he's on mute.
I was on mute. There was noises in the background, and I didn't want them disturbing you. I just actually said at the same time as Adam said about just saying being very impressed with the fact that you've stuck with it and got so much out of it, which I guess is what a lot of people do say about his stuff. That you're kind of rewarded for the for putting in the work if you can if you can stick through it. I have a J.R. Tolkien fact, which everyone might know already anyway, but he very nearly worked for Bletchley Park during the war.
Oh, really, I love that fact.
Yeah, he was on the shortlist. If you go to Bletchley Park, there's in the office they've got all the paperwork for how they started doing, basically trying to find people that would be ideal for kind of code breaking and stuff, and they wanted people that were very articulate and were very sort of well versed in English, as well as obviously sort of your mathsy people that could do kind of like the codey stuff. He was on a GCHQ list of possible candidates and nearly made it in, but didn't quite.
Well, that's interesting because he loved language and the structure of language, and within the Lord of the Rings, he created a number of languages, right? So, including including 2 languages for the elves, and a dwarf language, and a human language, and a common language, and he literally created multiple languages. So he probably would have been quite a good person for coding and decoding sort of messages. I can understand why.
And he could have forged a ring to win the war.
Indeed.
Absolutely. And he lived in Oxford, I think, or he was definitely a professor at Oxford University, so it's not far from Bletchley Park.
Yeah, so geographically. Yeah, it's the creativity as well that you might have brought to it as well. I think an interesting draw. Well, good fact, Hole. Love that.
Love it. Right, so... Sorry?
Fact of the episode so far.
Absolutely. But is it the only fact of the episode?
Yes.
No other facts. Opinions.
I'm conscious of time, and I've been talking for a while. I just want to touch on a couple of series that I watched on Apple TV Plus when my wife got a free 3-month free trial. So if you find yourself, if you've subscribed to Apple TV Plus, or find yourself with a free trial, there's a couple of sci-fi shows in there that I'd really recommend that are both really good fun. The first one is Severance, and this is it's 2 seasons of Severance, so you can really sort of get stuck into it. The premise behind this is that there is a company that you can go and work for where your work brain is separated from your sort of non-work brain. So effectively, you go to work and you don't remember anything that goes on in the outside world, and when you leave work, you don't remember anything that goes on at work. So it kind of sort of splits a person's brain in half. Not actually physically splits their brain in half, but effectively there becomes 2 personalities in one body, and they're called innies and outies. So the innies are the ones that are in the office, and the outies are the ones that are out of the office. And they do that because there's sort of high security stuff going on in the office that can't be known about outside of the office. So effectively, when you leave work, you forget everything, until you get back into the office, when you remember all your work stuff again. Anyway, it's a bit of a mystery, and it's fun and a bit funny in places as well. So I heartily recommend that. It stars Adam Scott, who I know from Parks and Recreation. If you've seen that, he's really good.
Do you think the guy looks a bit like Tom Cruise? Because I just think he looks a bit like Tom Cruise.
No, I think he looks like you. And you don't look like Tom Cruise.
I look nothing like Tom Cruise.
And maybe just because it's called Adam.
If Tom Cruise had a baby with Adam, maybe this is what you'd have.
Maybe this is what he would look like.
Yeah,
it's possible. Let's see how that goes. The other show, which is which is a lot of fun. It's called Murderbot. I don't know if anyone else has seen this. This is there's one series of this. It came out earlier this year, based on a set of books, I think, called the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. Yes, I'm reading this off the internet as I say it. So this is set in the future. The lead character is a android robot. Let's call him an android who's basically sort of human tissue and technology, looks human but is not human, and this android has turned off his ability to be controlled. So basically, he's been produced. He's actually like a security guard is his job, and he's worked out how to hack his own chip in his head to stop him being controlled by others. And so suddenly he can choose and make his own decisions in life on what he does. Anyway, it's very funny. He's working for humans, but he hates humans. He just wants to do a lot of killing, but doesn't do too much of it, and he's bored a lot of the time and spends a lot of his time downloading and watching trashy TV series while he's waiting for things to become interesting in the real world. So anyway, I don't think I've explained that very well, but it is a lot of fun. So I recommend you go and check that out. So
I did start to read the Murderbot series, the Martha Wells book, and I just didn't get into it. I don't know why. I just thought it seemed like my sort of thing, but I just didn't get into it. Maybe I need to give it.
Sounds good. Does sound good.
I would give it a go. He's really good. He's played by Alexander Skarsgård, and I have to say a lot of the supporting cast aren't that good, and some of the characters are a bit pointless. But overall, it's a good premise. It's a lot of fun, and it looks like there's going to be another season. I think they're making another season as well. So I would give that one a go.
Cool.
So these are all. It's nice that we've come up with such an eclectic, choice of things to discuss. So I think it's really nice that we're all centered on different Marvel movies or something like that. So I'm sure the audience will appreciate all of this. So my three things are I don't know, maybe a bit more mainstream. I don't know. But the first thing I think I want to talk about is Andor. Who here has seen Andor? Raise your hand. Shake your head. Two of us have, and two of you haven't. Andor has been described in 2025 as some of the best TV ever produced, even if you're not into Star Wars. It is gritty. It is. I mean, I think I remember talking about the first series and saying how good it is, but the second series of Andor, whereas the first series of Andor is, it's over a decent period of time, but it's sort of one phase in the main character's life. Andor, the second series, is essentially a bunch of movies, and in some cases there's years set between episodes, and it leads directly into Rogue One, the movie, which many of us think is the best Star Wars movie for donkey's years, because again it was the least Disney-esque one, and very similar in terms of tone to the original Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back. And it's just phenomenal TV. There are no Jedis in it that I can remember. There's no magical parts. There's no anything. It is a really good. I mean, if you like Tinker Tailor Spy, is that what it's called? Tinker Tailor Spy?
Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Thank you. If you like stuff like this, or the old Frederick Forsyth books come movies, Andor is just terrific. It's about the underground. It's about I don't think this is giving any big spoilers away. It's about how underground rebellions start, and how even within rebellions, not everyone's got the purest motives, or not everyone's pulling in the same direction. And this that, but ultimately there are people pulling strings who've got an ultimate agenda. The acting is phenomenal. The world building is phenomenal. And I think if anyone who hasn't watched it, I think it's a crime. But I would seriously say do not watch season 2 if you haven't watched season 1. Not because you need to have watched season 1 necessarily, but the emotional. The whole show is about the main character And then actually, if you watch Rogue One, it's very clever how they've backwardly engineered all of this because they hadn't written it. But if you watch Rogue One, it's obvious. In fact, there's a whole argument between him and the female protagonist, whose name I've forgotten, in Rogue One about the baggage everyone's carrying. Okay, but essentially he is carrying baggage, and you need to see where that baggage has come from. So season 1 is really important. Simon?
I'd say I agree with absolutely everything you said there. When I watched season 1, I didn't like all of it. Like, it was quite the first half. It was quite slow, and it did start to get going in the second half. Season 2 was fantastic, exactly as you said, and I got to the end of season 2, and I went straight on to watching Rogue One again, because literally season 2 ends, and it's almost like it could be the next scene, the beginning of Rogue One, and then you watch Rogue One again, and Andor has made it better, as you say. Like, they're talking about the baggage that they've been through. There's certain lines and quotes in Rogue One when they're talking about the sacrifices that have been made. Like, suddenly you know exactly what they're talking about, and it makes Rogue One a better movie. And then actually, after I watched Rogue One, I went and watched Andor season 1 again. I think I was on a plane, and it had the first 4 episodes. I thought, I'll just start watching it again. And second time round, second time round, Andor season 1 was loads better than the first time round, because you get it into, because now you know what the whole story looks like. You see the importance of certain things that happen in season 1, which you just thought were a little bit boring and irrelevant for the first time round. So an awful lot of thought and planning has gone into this TV show. And Stephen, I'm glad you've spoken about it, because I also think it's a really, really good show.
And you've definitely convinced me to have another go at it, because exactly what you said, Simon. I got about 4 episodes through it, and then, I mean, it wasn't like I was finding it particularly boring or anything. It was a bit slow. I was still enjoying it, but it clearly wasn't holding my interest enough, because something came along and distracted me.
Yeah.
And I ended up watching it. Just didn't take my time up, and I think, and now you have convinced me to give it another go, though, because I think, you're both so enthusiastic about the fact that it gets better.
It's not that it gets better. Is the whole thing about Andor, as that's why I said there's no Jedi Knights.
Yeah, it builds.
About how the little people make rebellions, and it's all about the little people. But not everything that happens in a little person's life is exciting.
Yeah, of course.
And Andor is about the slow grind, and how does he end up in this situation and end up being, in effect, the super spy.
Yeah, it's relevant to the story. It needs to be there. I can understand why it needs to be there. And actually, like I said, I think it may have got even to episode 5. And I think by then I was starting to think, oh yeah, this is really going somewhere now.
The other way to look at the series are part of a storyline which starts with Andor, goes through Andor season 1, Andor season 2, Rogue One, and then Star Wars episode 4, A New Hope. Because actually, the one of the themes within Andor is the building of the Death Star, and finding the plans for the Death Star, and then, or at least finding out that there are plans for the Death Star that they then go and find in Rogue One, that then get given to R2-D2 to go and give to Princess Leia. And
it's incredible to me that they found out the plans, so the cyber security for the team on the Death Star was just awful.
It was poor. And
then the actual engineering of the Death Star was just.
Adam, if you watch season 2, without giving stuff away, that what you're talking about literally comes up. So in an interrogation scene. So no, it is terrific. And also, what's amazing, and I say it's amazing. Obviously, it's been engineered like this, but you don't really realise it until you get to the very end. Is that the gap between the end? Because remember, as I said, the episodes in season 2, there's big gaps between the episodes time-wise. But the gap between the final couple of episodes, not the final couple, the final episode, or maybe it's the last 2, it might be the last 2. The last 2 episodes, which in effect form a movie, Rogue One and Star Wars episode 4. There's just weeks between them. It's remarkable. In the fictional world. So you suddenly realise, actually, this all went from we didn't know about the Death Star to Luke Skywalker. Walker turns up, and it's literally weeks between it, and it makes you realise that for all this thing about Luke comes to rebalance the Force with his dad. If it hadn't been for all these other people, he wouldn't have been blowing up any Death Star, right? So it's a fantastic TV show.
It takes a village to blow up a Death Star.
Absolutely.
So we've convinced Toll. Have we convinced Adam to go and watch it?
I don't know. Maybe.
Well, no. If he doesn't, he'll have to leave the podcast. So
I'm trying to leave the podcast. There's just no way out of this wormhole.
No, absolutely. So moving on. Don't need to talk too long about it, but Dune Part 2. Part 1 was very good. I mean, I'm one of the few people who like the original movie, and I watch it every year, despite its faults. But I thought...
Is it a Christmas movie? Do you watch it every year?
Yeah. After Die Hard and National Anthem's Vacation. Dune Part 2, I thought, was just really well paced, looks beautiful, really well told story, great acting. I don't have much to say about it. I just thought it was a really, really good a version of a difficult book, and as we know, what was a difficult movie. So, I mean, Carl, were you saying to me earlier that you had seen it, or you want to see
no,
it?
I've only seen the first one, and I enjoyed the first one more than I enjoyed the original film. I read the books before I saw the film originally, as a younger person, much younger person, and I enjoyed the books, even though they are fairly slow. It's like so I didn't have an issue with stones. I just thought that the film wasn't great, but obviously the reboot, Dune 1, I really enjoyed. I just haven't got around to seeing the second part, but definitely.
I think you do need to see the second part, because my reflection is that it's basically one movie, and like with like beginning, middle, and end, and Dune Part 1 is just the beginning part of the movie, and you have to wait till Dune Part 2 for any of the ending bit of the movie. So you can watch Dune Part 1 and go, okay, well that's just like nothing's really happened, and then you have to wait to the conclusion. And that the Dune 2 is just the conclusion of the whole stuff.
But it's not. It's not. Dune 2 is not the conclusion.
No, of that story of the first book.
Yeah, but there is literally a Dune Part 3 coming out. But
the books apparently go really weird though. I haven't read them, so I said on hearsay that.
But if you look at Dune, the original movie, I mean, all films cut parts, but they cut so much to fit that all into one movie. And actually, I think when you do watch Dune Part 2, a bit like what Simon was just saying about season 1 of Andor, he's gone back to it, and it seems to sit even better. I think once you watch Dune Part 2, Dune Part 1 is very justified with the time and space it gave to the.
Yeah, it's a good conclusion. When you say the original Dune, do you mean A New Hope Episode 4?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we talk about the original movie, you've always got to be careful what cut you're talking about, because that's the whole thing about the two movies. The original movie is the director didn't have his name on it because the studio recut the movie so much he didn't want his name on it. So it's when you look at it, who's directed it, I've forgotten the name of it, but there's a name which they use in Hollywood for films where the director refused to have their name on it. So this one person, who's a fictional person,
all these credits, all these directorial
credits on umpteen films. But there are two versions in the wild, and you can watch either one. But no, I thought Dune 2 was good, and I thought Dune 2 was also great in terms of just the world build. The way they built the world was wonderful. Anyway, so lastly, Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. We were discussing this before the hiatus. We're now into season 3. But in between, we've had season 2 as well as now season 3. It continues to delight me. It's a sci-fi show that knows what it's about. As we've discussed many times before, it's not all namby-pamby and Star Trek personnel randomly wandering the ship, discussing all their therapy issues. People seem to have real jobs on a real ship. Some of them are abrupt or rude to each other. It has bite. And it's not scared to do weird and wonderful stuff, like having musical episodes or episodes which involve animation or, I won't give any more away because actually you never know what you're going to get with a Star Trek Strange New Worlds episode, and that's what makes it fun to watch. because it's just each episode is quite different, but yet still feels all part of the same thing. And yes, it's a bit like Andor. We know where we're leading to. We're leading to the catastrophic issues that happened to Captain Pike, and I assume at some point, some other members of the crew are going to be lost, because as we know, they don't turn up on the Enterprise later, do they? So we know what we're building towards, but they're handling it really well. The pacing's really good. They've announced one more season, so not this season. There will be a season 4, but it will be the last season, and it's a shorter season. And then there's a question mark: do they continue with Kirk, or do they not? I think the people who own Star Trek at the moment don't actually know what to do with it, and they don't have a direction. But Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, though, does have direction, and I think it's really good science fiction TV. Simon, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I find myself agreeing with you today, Stephen. I think I haven't seen season 3 yet, but season 2 and season 1 were both really, really good. You're absolutely right. It knows what it is. It's Star Trek. It feels like Star Trek, and it's feel good. And yeah, some of the episodes are a bit weird and wacky, but they're fun and funny, and I think Anson Mount, who plays Pike, is really, really good. Yeah, I love that show, and I'm looking forward to subscribing to Paramount Plus for a month to sort of binge that, and also to watch. I don't know if you've seen it, the Section 31 movie. I hear it was bad, but
Yes.
did you? It was bad. Okay, I'll still
No. I've not watched it, but it looks
Okay.
bad. It is bad, according to the world, and it's an example of them not knowing what to do with Star Trek. Oh, Adam has just pointed out that the name of the name they give the director name they use in Hollywood for films where the director doesn't want their name is Alan Smithy. So Alan Smithy has a lot of movies to their name, and one of them was the original Dune. So there we go. So yes, Strange New World. If you haven't watched it yet, do what Simon's going to do and binge it at some point. So this brings us to the end of our first renewed season of Four Men in a Wormhole. It's been emotional as always. And I look forward to our next episode where we'll discuss what we've been watching, but try and also have a little discussion, debate about one thing in particular each episode. I think that's always fun. As Adam says, we can bicker. People like that. So I'd like to say thank you and goodbye to my friends and guests. Adam, why don't we start with you? Adam, thank you for joining us today.
It's been a pleasure, Stephen. Loved it. It's great to be back.
Sal Silverman, thank you for being with us.
Nice to be back on the bridge.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And Simon Cohen, last but not least, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, guys. It's been a lot of fun. Good to be back.
And this is me, Stephen Gurevich, your ever-boarding host of Four Men in a Wormhole, saying to all the wormies, thank you for listening, and we look forward to joining you on our next show. Bye-bye.
Four Men in a Wormhole!